I'm in a bad mood. Because usually right here beside me, I fill up a big old cup filled with ice, do a few pumps of whatever flavor, and I make one of those sodas with the... And recently I've been doing Dr. Pepper with a little bit of pineapple and a little bit of coconut, and it was ready for me. But then when I took a sip of it, like I was pouring it in, it was like super bubbly. Like, what the heck's going on? And it was white bubbles. I took a sip and it was like super soapy. So I ruined it. And I don't have another one. I'll have to go get one. So that's what I'm dealing with. Obviously, the characters are dealing with some things, and I can't talk. So they have things that they're dealing with. They have their burden. I have my burden. But we're going to keep going. So I don't know how this is going to go, but since I've been liking this series so much, especially this book so much, I want to at least make sure that we touch base on the plot that's going on as that's going forward, so that we don't forget anything. I don't think this is going to go too long. I'm not going to read everything because, again, I touched on a lot of the things that I wanted to talk about. So right at the start of chapter 11, and the epigraph comes from this Nekath of One-Eye Cat. Oh, I'm hiccuping now. Jeez, see? This is why I need my pop there. Anyway. Okay, so the very first sentence. No purer artist exists or ever has existed than a child freed to imagine. To drive children into labor is to slaughter artists. And then we get this young Harlow who was not thinking of justice. He wasn't really thinking of anything that he was thinking of before, these big open fields. No, for Harlow, childhood was over. Aged 6. So great. So sad. And he's going down. He's going down to deliver splints to this Talani Mass. As he's going down, he's realizing that, he reaches this balcony edge and he realizes that this is some sort of buried building. When he gets down there, he has these bones, and this Talani Mass, I can't remember, what was his name even? I want to make sure I at least get his name right, but we all know who we're talking about. Yeah, Devad Anantol. So I'm not sure what I'll, because that's a mouthful. Anyway, he goes down and he has the splints, and he says, "Let me see those bones. This gift is not in imbalance." And remember, he gave Harlow some tools, and Harlow says, "I can find better ones." He says, "No, child, the imbalance is in the other way. Like, you have given me more than just splints. You have given me legs." He just has to fashion them up a little bit and whatnot. Anyway, this next part, we have the 2 guards who are at the gate, and there are 2 others that show up, and they are going to be the ones that are to cover the grounds. What was it called? The compound guards, and they're way better than the other guards, and they are big. One's massive and one's kind of thin. They say, "Stop there, state your business," and then they go in. They get invited right in. I loved this scene, but I don't want to really spend too much time with it. The 2 guards, Left and Scorched, kind of make fun of their clothing because it's so shiny, and then these 2 say, "Well, it's a little bit of a culture clash." And Studlock comes back, and he's like surprised to see them. Because they were buried in a mountain, and it had a certain hammer that was involved. So this must have been during This must have been during the time when when Brood had a little bit of a fit and tried to hit Kruppa, who is just more and more awesome. Oh yeah, and I didn't mention that scene. That we'll get to that. Okay, so these compound guards, we find out that they are Segula in this next scene. Torvald is kind of quietly eating in haste. Tessera is his wife is doing some things, and there's this stuff left unspoken, topics unbidden, ever lurking. Like, he's in the doghouse. He knows he's eventually gonna get it. She knows she's eventually gonna give it. And it's funny because we've all been there if we've been married, and sometimes, in one way or another, we've had that sort of feeling in the room at times. He gives this perfunctory kiss, which is like, a kiss with minimum effort. He just does it, and he says, "Oh, sweet, I will run, not walk back to the estate now. Oh, your stomach is upset? Let's hope you heave all over the 2 gate guards when you get there." "Yes, and suddenly it'll be midnight, and like a doomed man, I will count the steps to the gallows awaiting me at home." "It's been a busy day, husband. Just thinking of all the things I'd like to do to you for breaking that promise." She doesn't believe his story at all about the Toblakai and slavery and all this stuff that was involved with why he was away. And it's hilarious. And he says, "I'll attempt to sleep on no more than a handspan of bed, stiff as a board, not making a sound." "Yes, you will, darling." Terrible indeed, a wife's disappointment and mayhap disgust. Even the fact that Torvald Nom held the title of captain to the house guard, but granted him a temporary abeyance of the shrill fury he clearly deserved, and it waited. Oh, it waited. He knew it, she knew it, and he knew she was holding on to it like a giant axe poised above his acorn of a head. Yes, he'd given up slavery for this. Like, that's the funniest line. Such was the power of love, the lure of domestic tranquility, and the fending off of lonely solitude. Would he have it any other way? Ask him later. Just amazing. And he gets to these 2 guards. He gets to work, and he finds these 2 guards who are the same ones who were guarding the house when he went into that woman's home to rob from her. So they're just not really, they suck at their job. And not either of them was watching the street. Instead, it seemed like they were arguing. So they remind me so much of the vultures in Jungle Book, and I mentioned that in the last video. "We got 2 new compound guards," said Lef. "What are they like?" "They're friends of Studlock's, who they call Studious." And at this, Torvald stops. Studious Locke, the Landless, Studious Locke, the Landless of One Eye Cat, and I'm not sure what that is. I don't know if that's a city in Genebacus. I haven't really looked at the old map from maybe Memories of Ice would show it. But clearly something happened there, and clearly something happened regarding the Segula. And so he's making this connection, like, I've heard of this guy. Torvald flinched as Studlock drifted towards him, hood, mask, eerie eyes, all bound up in rags to cover up what had been done to him back in his adopted city. Yes, but then infamy never stayed hidden for long, did it? Like, even though, he has this other kind of mask, I assume that means that he's also a former Segula, but we have Madron, who's this massive one, Malazan, who's more of a kind of a rail. Captain, is something wrong? And he just blurts out, "But where are their masks?" And yeah, I love this scene. I love this scene. I'm not going to go through all of it because I don't want to just read everything, right? And he says, these were outrageous lies, the things that he's heard. I assure you we completed our task, even unto pursuing the fist and his cadre into the very heart of the mountain. These two. I don't know. That doesn't mean that these are the two that were with Lady Envy. These must be different ones that were chasing a fist and the cadre into the mountains. I think. I don't recall these other Segula being massive at all, but they are renegade and they don't have their masks. They are talkative. They're doing things a little bit different. That means they are super legit. And the Studlock basically says, this isn't going to come up again, is it? As stated earlier, cut in the Castellan, who is that's Studlock. The necessity for armed vigilance during the day is simply non-existent. Risk assessment and so forth. No, Captain, we have no need for more guards. 4 will suffice. Was Lady Verda aware of any of this? And so he is going to sneak in and try to talk to her about her new recruits that she has. It makes sense to hire more guards, but not mass murderers, not sadists, ones that had some kind of humanity, ones whose humanness was questionable and open to interpretation. It all sounded very reasonable and diligent, as befitted a captain. Like, this is, maybe it should be his role to go and inform her just in case she doesn't know. So he creeps along. He goes on this roof. He peers over the edge. He sees them playing dice. They're supposed to be kind of patrolling the grounds in his eye, but, that would just be a formality. They are playing knuckles, which is like, it feels like they are kind of, there's some kind of connection with deities and stuff with that game, and that shocks him. Torvald suspected he could just sit there and listen this whole time, but he needed to take advantage of their carelessness. Now, could he make the leap onto this balcony without making a noise? Of course he could. He'd been a thief for years. A successful thief, too, if not for all the arrests and fines and prison time and slavery and the like, which, he is not like Rallick at all in that sense, but he still does the profession. It's awesome. He tested the balcony door. It was unlocked. He comes in, and he talks to her, and she doesn't really want, she's glad that he brought it up, but it's not necessary. She asks if the 2 gate guards are as incompetent as they look. He says that would be quite an achievement because they just look like the dumbest dopes ever. But he says, they are good in a pinch, but it's the formality of the present job that has them so awkward. Now, she quickly changes the subject when the Segula when they come up, or when he brings up the Segula, and then she says to kind of drop it, go back down through the stairway, and then he goes over to them, and he wants them to patrol the compound at different times, and this, and Madron was smiling. He bowed. Sound instruction, Captain. Thank you. We shall commence our duties immediately. Malazan, collect up your scrying dice, and I like this part. We must attend to the necessary formalities of diligent patrol. Like, this isn't going to help, but you're the boss. We'll do it. It's just going to be a formality, though. Studious Locke has all these different kind of names attached to him. Blood drinker, bile spitter, poisoner. Remember what he did to either Scorch or left the one with the orange eyes, which I still think, what is going to happen with that? Make new masks. Or if that even has anything to do with the orange eyes, or if he had the orange eyes already. I kind of forgot. Make new masks. Why should they do that? Renegade Segula are renegade. They can never go back. Make new masks, he said to them. Why? Which makes me wonder that too. And then after all this, he squeezes into his the small area in his small office behind his desk in a most disagreeable state. And he's like, his stomach is rumbling and stuff. And Lef thinks that Tessera, it goes to the next scene, Tessera is poisoning Torvald because she's a witch. And it's because she doesn't like Scorch, and because Scorch always gets them in trouble. And he's like, well, why would he do that to me? Well, anyway, it's funny. It's funny. So I ain't touching nothing that she cooks, that's for sure. And then they just argue for the rest of this. And I love this last little line in this scene, and it comes from Kruppa. Like rats, we skitter away from the pools of light, seeking other matter, other scenes both tranquil and foul. Follow me, oh, follow me. And then we have this long, this more philosophizing or whatever of Kruppa walking past, his enormous shadow rolling on, past the shops, past the wares, past the loaves of bread, past the vessels, past the harpist, past the weaver, past the wax stripper, past the gate. And then he wanders in, right, this is going to Barrack's place, and he goes right past all the wards that Barrack has placed on the place to, to protect himself. Kruppa just walks right through, and I just love it. It's very Karsa-esque in the way he can just do that, but very, very cool. And they talk here about, how dire are things, truly as dire as I believe, Kruppa. And I want to read this part because this is amazing. Certain arrangements have been finalized, said Barrack. Most impressive, Barrack, friend of Kruppa. How can such portentous events be measured, one wonders, if one was a wondering type. Yet listen, the buried gate creaks. Dust sifts down, stones groan. Humble as we are, we can hope to halt. Can we hope to halt such inevitabilities? Alas, time grinds on, all fates spin, and not even the gods can guess how each will topple. The moon itself rises, uncertain of these nights. The stars waver, rocks fall upward. Wronged wives forgive and forget. Oh, this is a time for miracles. That rocks fall upward, that makes me think of something in the next chapter, which I've only done a few pages, but there's a mention of all heads rolling downwards. So rocks fall upward. And is that what we need, Kruppa? Miracles? Each moment may indeed seem in flux, chaotic and fraught. Yet, and Kruppa knows this most surely, when all is set out, moment upon moment, then every aberration is but every aberration is but a modest crease, a feeble fold, a crinkled memento. The great forces of the universe are as a weight stone upon the fabric of our lives, rich and poor, modest and ambitious, generous and greedy, honest and deceitful. Why, all is flattened, splat, crunch, smear, ooze. What cares nature for jeweled crowns? Coins are stacked perilously high, great estates and lofty towers, kings and queens, tyrants and devourers. All are in midges on the forehead of the world. Just You advise an extended perspective. That is all very well from a historian point of view, and in retrospect, unfortunately, Kruppa, to those of us who must live it in the midst, as it were, it provides scant relief, no doubt. Alas, Beric speaks true. Lives in, lives out. The sobs of death are the sodden songs of the world, so sad, so true, so sad. Kruppa asks this. Witness two scenes. In one, an angry, bitter man beats another man to death in an alley in the Gadrobi district. In the other, a man of vast wealth conspires with equally wealthy compatriots to raise yet again the price of grain, making the cost of simple bread so prohibitive that families starve, are led into lives of crime and die young. Are both acts of violence? The High Alchemist stood looking down at Kruppa. In one case, in one of those examples, you will find blood on a man's. In only one of those examples, you will find blood on a man's hand. True, deplorable as such stains are, Kruppa says. There are, said Beric, countless constructs whereby the wealthy man might claim innocence, mitigating circumstances, and we see this. Expected costs of production, the law of supply and demand, and so on. Indeed, a plethora of justifications, and that is what Seer Damin is struggling with right now. This idea of justifying his acts because of what he was forced to do, but he still is holding on to that, making the water so very murky. Who then sees the blood? Oh man, it's just, yeah. And I kept highlighting everything, but I don't want to read everything to you. But it's just so good, and man, maybe I should a little bit. Let me just. Yes, and it's like it keeps going on until it all collapses. And up from that is this seed of new things, new beginnings. And Beric is like, that's kind of a gross way to look at it. To see, it's almost like welcoming destruction so that we can have the new beginnings. Something that maybe, obviously people who lived for a very long time might have that sort of perspective, like this is not nearly what it was, we should get rid of it. But people living in that time, like they want to make the best of that time they have. So this is kind of tough for Beric to hear. Any other momentous news? Cities live in haste, ever headlong. Nothing changes and everything changes. A murderer stalks Gadrobi. Assassins plot. Lovers tryst of dreams and said trysts. Children belabor unknown futures. People retire. Friendships unfold while others unravel. And I'm skipping some stuff. I don't know why I said Steve. Some things. All in its time. Most High Alchemist. All in its time. You do not put me at ease, Kruppa. Join me in a glass of this exquisite vintage. There are a dozen wards sealing the cellar. Twice as many as your last visit. Indeed, and you did not trip a single one. Extraordinary. Yes, it is. Which makes me think, I have to trust this guy, right? I have to trust Kruppa that he does have things managed, but it still is such a heavy, sad sort of thing that we are seeing. Oh, goodness. I also forgot this in my little, good thing we came back to this. We have Char and Barathol, and they have set up shop, and, they're getting these new weapons. They're going to go procure some things, and they get a very fine hammer that was no doubt looted from an old Malazan army weaponsmith. The front door is open, or kicked open. A bunch of people spread out and in, and they are people that are not happy with what they're doing. We figured this would show up, and it happens right away. And he says, we have some open valves and things. If you do anything, if there's like a spark, it's going to just blow up the place and probably blow up the district. You say what I'm doing illegal, well, blowing up a district would also be illegal, and you'll be in big trouble, but you'll be dead. And so they figure, well, we gotta deal with you individually then. We won't destroy your shop, but we'll deal with you. And he lifts up this fired clay ball. And I got so excited. And we find out that in every 13th crate of 12 cussers each, there is a 13th cusser empty. Why? Who knows? The Moranth are strange folk. Probably for this very reason, to ward off threats. Probably for this very, very reason, but I don't know. But man, good thing he had that around, and it's so exciting. I love Barathol, and I love Char. Okay, what is next? So we have this amazing little kind of, we have this little thing that is just a intro before the fire. I don't, that's a terrible way of putting that, but it's Kruppa again saying we have this fingerless man set out for a new tavern, murder on his mind, his wife at home kneeling with these stones. We have Solara and Duaker. We have Lady Chalice, or Chalice, or whatever, Chalice. We have Cutter. We have Ralik Nom, Times. And he even makes note here, the same thing that he made note with Crocus or Cutter. He says, well, times and people change, don't they, Justin? Things are about to change. Murillo. Oh, I love this part. In dueling school, long after the last of the young students had toddled out. This one actually really hit me. Murillo sat under moonlight with Stani Menakis, as weeping, she unburdened herself to this veritable stranger. She was doing that job getting rich, but she was still very, very much, she's very harmed from that incident. And she's unloading to Murillo, which perhaps is what made it so easy. But Stani had no experience with a man such as Murillo, as great as Gruntle is, who understood what it was to listen, to bestow rapt, thorough, and most genuine attention solely upon the one woman, to draw all of her essence so pouring out into his own being, as might a hummingbird drink nectar, or a bat a cow's ankle blood. She wept, and she wept often, and each time it was somehow easier, somehow more natural, more comfortable and acceptable. That's so beautiful, hey? 3 dozen figures gathering on the rooftop. These are these assassins exchanging hand signals, and and everything's just going to go down. I'm not going to do the details of this next fight, but I want to name some of the main players in it. This is in Krull's Bar, which used to be kind of a temple. It sort of still seems like a temple in some ways, but it's acting as this bar. We had somebody killed in the bar, which used to be Krull's temple in Gardens of the Moon. Someone mentioned on the last video, and that may have kind of activated things again. I don't know. We have guests coming in. We have Blue Pearl wandering and looking for stuff to drink, dips his finger and pokes it into his mouth, and like a ghost shows up. So like, what the heck? Is that you, Brother Coven? Like, what the heck? And he just closed the cap, like, maybe I shouldn't deal with all these. So this is stuff that was like left over maybe from the old temple. And we have Blend watching people come in. We have Antsy looking for this 2-headed rat that nobody believes that exists. 11 figures crowded the corner room of the upper floor, 3 with daggers, 4 with crossbows, the last 4 with swords and bucklers beneath their loose shirts there was fine chain. This was almost time. We have the bard, Fisher Keltath, who's just kind of watching and having a drink. Picker's in her chair, and noticing that these drunks come in, but things don't seem quite right. And Barathol and Char should have been there by now. I do like Picker, that she just has this instinct about her. And she notices that just things aren't right. It was an act, meaning this argument that is going on that's supposed to kind of be a distraction. Anyway, Blue Pearl finds Antsy down there, and Blue Pearl goes up, and he's going to be a part of the fight before Antsy. And Skevros, this bar guy, the barkeep, he is killed first. Picker dodges a quarrel. The next one hits Hedry, this 15-year-old serving girl. Blend gets hit in the shoulder. Mallet opens the door, and I love Mallet, and I mentioned it in my last video that I love Mallet so much. And he gets killed, and his last, as he's seeing the dagger that's going to flash down into his eye, he has this, flashback of a time where kick open the gate, Whiskey Jack. That comes to his mind, and he dies with an odd smile on the dead man's face. I think he really loved Whiskey Jack, like all these people did, but I really like Mallet. Blue Pearl dies with like a, brutally, having to do with, anyway, I don't need to go through all this. We have Antsy coming up, and I believe Antsy threw these sharpers. Picker uses a crossbow and, falls over this table throwing these granados, and her quarrels go all over, and she's bloody at the mouth. Blend has this arrow in his shoulder. Her shoulder? Dang, I need to know if that's a... Yeah, anyway, Blend has an arrow in her teeth, right, and tries to pull it out, passes out, and everything's going bad. Antsy's putting up a fight, and then maybe this is maybe one of my favorite scenes in the series again, especially when some of these assassins notice Blend, start charging her, and then Barathol and Char shows up. Someone slammed into them from one side, loosing a bellowing ball like a wounded bull, and Blend stared at the huge man, Char. He swung his enormous fists, heads snapped back on broken backs, faces crumpled in sprays of blood. And then Barathol was there, with nothing more than a knife, slashing into reeling assassins, and Blend could see the fear in the blacksmith's eyes. Fear for Char. And I think that rings true again, where a lot of, me as a dad, in an invasion or something, yes, I would fear if something terrible happened, but you would fear for your children, and you would fear for, Char is this very innocent, sort of very strong guy, and I love that. It just shows his love for Char. Char, his forearms slashed by desperate daggers, picked up an assassin and threw him down onto the cobbles. Yikes. Bones snapped. Still bawling, he picked up... Yeah, he's crying during this. He picked up the broken form... up by the ankle and swung him into the air, round then loose, to collide with another assassin, and both went down. Barathol was suddenly above the first man, driving his boot heel down on his temple, limbs spasmed. Barathol wrapped Char in a hug to calm him down. Tears streaked Char's broad cheeks, and his fists were still closed, like massive bloody mauls at the end of his arms. He had wet himself. And we just a great scene. And then we have kind of the smoke, the dust starting to settle, and they realize they've lost so much. Blend knew that tone. No, it's not good at all. Blend knew that tone I'm skipping. Still, she wondered, are we enough? Is there enough in us to do this? So first I read that, are there enough of us? Now I read it for what it is. Is there enough in us to do this? That's a very different way of reading that. Do we still have what's needed? They lost a healer, which they need a healer in this book especially. And a mage this night. They'd lost the best of them because we were careless. It's really, really big losses tonight. And then the very last scene, we have 6 streets away. And it's very interesting because with Kruppa's little intro to this, makes note that these other people are off and they have no idea that this is going down. Duaker and Solara have no idea that this is going down. Cutter has no idea, and he's only 6 streets away. And he is at this crypt, looking at these stylized deities, Barrow and Burn, Soleil and Nerus, Treach, and the Fallen One, Hood and Fanderay, Hood and Tiger, Boar and Worm, row of marble sarcophagi, homes to those who would answer the final question, the last question, what lies beyond, what awaits us all, what shape the gate before me. One spoke of death often, the death of a friendship, the death of love, each echoed with the finality that awaited at the very end. But they were faint echoes, ghostly, acting out scenes in puppet shows, swallowed in flickering shadows. Kill a love? What lies beyond? Emptiness, cold drifting ashes, yet does it not prove fertile? A place where a new seed is planted, finding life, growing into itself? Is this how death is as well? How true death is as well? From dust a new seed? A pleasing thought, a comforting thought. Yeah, I don't want to go through all this, but it's so good, isn't it? It makes you, yeah. You can just see what they are dealing with, and with what a lot of people contemplate and deal with. Some people go to religions and stuff, and some people contemplate it in different ways. Crocus Younghand, he slowly turned, a woman before him, exquisitely dressed, a cloak. I forgot the part where Chalice was watching people kind of rifle through her stuff again, and she feels like she's just so different than them now, or so changed in a way. So she calls him by his old name. He turns around and calls her by her old name, her maiden name. Later, he would look back on this moment, on the dark warnings contained in the fact that when he spoke her name of old, she did not correct him. Ooh, yeah, that is dark. That is not dark in and of itself. It's like two friends just, or not two friends, but you can see how maybe, he was obsessed with this girl. Ooh, I didn't really think about that. How this could be bad. She could, I like this girl, but she might. Anyway. With such, I don't even know how to say that. Percipients have changed things. All that was to come, death and murder, seeds in the ashes. One does as one does. Sarcophagi gaped. Urns echoed hollow and dark. Stone faces awaited names. Grief crouching at the gate. Such was this night in the city of Darujistan. Such is this night everywhere. I love that. It's like, this is what's happening in Darujistan, but this is just this is an echo of what happens everywhere in one way or another. Man, such a good scene. And I have read part of chapter 12, maybe 10 pages or so, and I will get to that when I finish it. It's already just incredible, but I loved this chapter, and I love where things are going. I'm nervous for some of our characters, but I really love this so far. And we're about halfway, aren't we? So talk to you on the next one. Bye.